Hello, everyone. I am John Ryan of SportsMemo.com, and you are watching Manny's Irish Pub Sports Betting Show, which is a little bit of a laid-back type of show. We talk about more broad topics, but we also talk about betting strategies and opportunities that are out there in the landscape. And there's always a lot to talk about, even this time of year, and even with just baseball season around the corner being the only sport. And there's also WNBA, of course, and KBO if you're into that kind of thing. But I'm pleased to have Ralph Michaels on the show. Um, I can't thank you enough for having the opportunity to work with you with the TNA segment during the NFL playoffs, which was a huge success. And trends and angles are our thing. So if you don't know Ralph Michaels and you haven't been involved with sports betting very long, but he's definitely a name that you want to definitely know and follow and watch the shows when he's on the shows at Wagertalk. And then we have this guy. And this guy is Jeff Michaels. And you might guess that Ralph Michaels and Jeff Michaels are related. They are. They're father and son. And Jeff runs JM Sports for SportsMemo.com. Ralph is best known, in my opinion, for being one of the founders of North Coast Sports, which if you're as old as I am, which is 35 years of age, you probably followed that publication religiously. It was a tremendous thing. So welcome to the show, guys. We're going to be joined by Tony Finn and Rob Veno at some point here in the next 10, 15 minutes. But I'm glad you guys were available to be on the show. And let's start with something that your dad wanted to talk about, Jeff, and that's his college football power ratings, which are, again, a resource that he provides free over wagertalk.com. In a few days to a week, you'll be able to download that for your own benefit to do your own handicapping. And believe me, it's June 3rd, but it's not too early. This is where professional sports bettors start researching college and pro football. We don't wait till September 8th and say, oh my goodness, the NFL starts this week. It's a process, and you got to have a plan before the season starts. No better plan than these power ratings that Ralph has. And I'm going to let him talk about it as long as he wants, as long as Penn State is one of those top 10 teams. Otherwise, I don't know. Take it away, Ralph. Tell us what you got.
Well, I actually have Penn State at number 16.
Close enough.
This is an early power rating number. But what I do is, if you go to the Wager Talk live odds screen, wt.buzz/odds, or available at Sports Memo as well, you'll see that there's college football lines for every game and every total, week 0 and week 1, from the Circa, Westgate, South Point, DraftKings, Caesars, WinBet, BetOnline, and Heritage, and Bookmaker. So you already have college lines. They've been betting them. I've already posted a play up at wagertalk.com. But what I'll be posting this Monday or Tuesday is a complete power rating listing of all the teams, plus a schedule which shows my home field edge and the power rating number, giving you a theoretical win total for that team and a theoretical conference win total. Conference win totals just came out. Season win totals just came out at a few books, and there's been some value with those. But I'm going to quickly run down my top 10 teams. I have Alabama number 1, and I always start the season with my number 1 team being 100 and then go down from there. That gives me a perspective during a season where a team starts and where they finish. So there's people that do random numbers from one time to the other. I always start at 100. It gives you a fresh, clean place to start, and you know exactly how many spots a team was below your top team, or if they finished the season at 110, you know that team exceeded expectations. Ohio State, my number 2 team, at 98. Georgia, number 3 at 96. Clemson, number 4. Michigan, number 5. I have NC State higher than most. You're going to find a lot of value, I believe, with the Wolfpack. I have them as the number 6 team. They were plus 100-plus yards in ACC action last year. They come back loaded. And, again, I think that's going to be the surprise team in the ACC. Followed by Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Utah, Arkansas, Kentucky, Miami, Michigan State, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Wisconsin. I'll tell you what, when we get past Clemson and we get from Michigan down to Wisconsin, Oregon, Baylor, all of those teams are within 2 or 3 points. So a transfer may jump someone up. A couple injuries in fall camps can move someone. So they're very fluid numbers. And just to give you an example, the worst team I have power rated, the bottom 3 teams, New Mexico State, and Connecticut. If I have Alabama playing Connecticut at a neutral site week 1, I would have them as a 54-point favorite. So 54 points is my top to bottom power rating. But as I said, I'll be posting them at Wagertalk Monday or Tuesday. You'll get my complete power ratings, and you'll get the schedule for each team with the theoretical wins for the season. And you can go through and mark down your wins or losses as you start to bet those season win totals that are popping up.
That's awesome stuff, Ralph. It really is. I got a question for you. NC State, is there a player on there that is Heisman worthy, possibly?
No, I just think the way their team has played, I don't see them with the standout talent. But you look at what they've recruited. They come in as I'm trying to pull up my numbers here real quick. Last year, NC State, they were plus 60 yards per game, which was number 34 in the country. And people look at Clemson, and Clemson went 6-2. One thing I look at that's very important are conference-only stats, because you could blow out a non-conference flow and play a weak schedule. Did you know Clemson last year, despite going 6-2 in the ACC, they were actually outgained by 9.3 yards per game? That is like a 3-3 team. So they were very fortunate. The other thing I always look at are conference turnovers, how a team does in conference-only games. Pittsburgh was the top team in the ACC last year, plus 6 turnovers. Add that to the plus 118 yards per game. That shows you why they had so much success. But you look at NC State right now, they are going to be returning 75% of their offensive production and 88% of their defensive production. This from a team that allowed under 20 points per game, and they had some solid recruiting numbers. As well the last few years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know with my stuff, and I think I probably learned a lot of this from you over the years. Returning starters, if a team has, say, 18 or more starters returning, and they're going against an opponent with only 11 returning starters, especially on the offensive line, because that is a team within a team, and there's a lot of chemistry that needs to be built with that 5-man offensive line. So I'm guessing NC State probably has more than 18 of the 22 starters returning. So anytime they're going against a team in the first 4 weeks that has an offensive line that is new and has a lot of replacements or new players starting, that probably sets up a pretty good opportunity right there.
It does. And they have, one thing I learned, and I wasn't the founder of North Coast Sports. I just spent about 15 years there. Phil Steele was the founder, a person who was in my wedding, and, someone I completely respect. I was the general manager of the last 8 years of both North Coast Sports and Phil Steele. And when you were talking the publication at North Coast Sports, that, of course, was the Power Sweep newsletter and the Power Play newsletter. I think returning starters are very overrated, because with a 12-game schedule, a lot of sources, if you have a player that made 6 starts or more, they count him as a returning starter. Well, potentially on the offensive line, you could have 10 players that made 6 starts each and have 10 returning starters. You only have a position. So one thing that Phil taught me that I think is very important is, let's say you have a player who lost 12 and 2 players that started 6 each returning. Well, you have to look at what you lost. If you lost a 12-game starter, then no matter how many starts those other players made, they can only return 4 starters because you lost a 12-game starter. Connolly at ESPN does a good job with returning starters. Colin Wilson on the Action Network. And one of my favorite sites, Kim Keep. It's called Keepers Ratings. He doesn't come out till a little later in the summer, but what he does is he actually does the number of starts. So an offensive team that played 12 games and you have 5 starters, you can have 60 starts. And he will actually put in that you're returning 53 of the 60 starts of last year. That, to me, a much more important number than the players that you randomly decide who's a starter and who wasn't a starter.
I can't agree more, especially that offensive line. That's good stuff. Absolutely.
It's changed so much now with the transfer portal too, that, you know, a lot of times you lose a starter and it's hard to replace them because you replace them with a recruit or, you know, somebody who had played in high school or had to sit out a year. And now you have, you know, guys that are coming from other schools that are eligible to start immediately. So while you lose, you know, 12 starts, it's obviously not the case in every situation, but you have a team that picks up a starter that could have potentially started 10 games last year playing for another team, assuming that, you know, you go through the transfer portal the way that it is now and you don't miss a year of eligibility.
One last thing, John, we don't want to talk all college football today. I'll say this. When you look at recruiting numbers, do not look at what the recruiting rankings are for this year. You can look at what the transfer rankings are, but really the recruiting rankings are the rankings from 2 years ago. You look at your major teams like Clemson. I do a chart which has the percentage of freshmen that started a game. Most teams are under 6% of their starts are by freshmen. But when you have a team like Florida State, who last year started 31.8% of their starts were made by freshmen, well, I'll tell you what, that's a team that now has a lot of experience. That's a lot of young players who improved greatly from year 1 to year 2 in the workroom. So those are the teams that I look for, and I'll publish that chart as well. You find those teams that played a lot of underclassmen. Those underclassmen improve much more than most of the times between a junior and a senior if you're a returning starter.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that as well. And I think Florida State's probably a team to put on the radar as well. Look who we have. Rob Veno in the house.
Veno!
Hello, people. Ralph, you giving college football lessons already?
Yeah.
You know what?
Never
Check
too early.
your email, buddy. So
I like that.
about an hour ago.
Oh, okay. Have to
Yeah,
check
he did
that
his,
out. How is
top
everybody?
10, power ratings. Actually gave out the top 20. And, it's always great stuff. We were talking about the offensive line and returning starters on the offensive line and what he learned from Phil Steele with quantifying that with your, you have 5 offensive linemen. So 12 games, that's 60 starts. How many of those starts are returning? That type of thing. We have Jesse Schule here now too.
Hey
you guys
guys,
must be thirsty. That's why you're doing Manny's Club.
John, I will give you something actionable. I gave this out on Wagertalk today. Week 1, I gave out Rutgers +8. They're now down to +7.5 against Boston College. But that is an actual play that I have posted already at Wagertalk. So let's give the people something they can go and actually bet right now. And that is one of my plays, Week 1, Rutgers plus the points.
That's great stuff. Really good.
Ralph, I heard you talking, and Jeff, about transfer portal and whatnot. What do you make of Lincoln Riley and all the transfers he got out there at USC? Is that going to be a discombobulated mess, or will that gel?
I have USC a point behind Oregon and a point behind Utah. So I do have them ranked pretty high. I can't put them as the best team until they prove something to me, but I think they are worthy of their ranking, at least in my book. Again, there's not many sets of power ratings out, so I don't know where others are going to put them. It's one of the biggest jumps from the end of last year to where they were this year. So I give Lincoln Riley credit. And obviously Oklahoma, with what they lost that went out to USC, I have them down almost 5 or 6 points from the end of last year where they finished in my power ratings.
Yeah, and they'll start Dylan Gabriel, right?
Yep.
We need college football show back, Ralph.
Yep. Oh, we're ready to do it, man.
TNA, baby.
Season win totals came out, so we could start doing a season win total show once we get a few guys caught up in college football. Jesse, how are you, my friend?
I'm hanging in there. I'm a little bit jealous of all you guys that have time to handicap college football when we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. I'm not prepared to give my opinions about Week 1 yet.
He is
Yeah.
Penn State 16th, Jesse. I know you wanted to know that.
But like I said,
All right.
from 6 to 20, there's only a 2 or 3 point gap between all of those teams right now. So 16 doesn't mean much. So you can't get caught up in the numbers. And, it really is. Home field edge, in college football is so unique. Where in the NFL, I basically give everyone 2. In college football, I go from 0.5 up to 7 for a Penn State whiteout. I used to give 6.5 to LSU at night. That's come down a little bit, but it's as important to do your work with home field edge as it is power ratings because of the difference with the home road dichotomies. I remember Boise State and Hawaii when they used to be good teams. There's probably a 14-point swing from playing in Hawaii with the heat and humidity than playing in the cold with Boise when those two teams played.
Yeah, I remember adding that. I think we talked about that on this show with you having the highest home field advantage during a whiteout. It was also a 5% max bet that I had out there too on Penn State. And I'm trying to think who that was against, but they did win and they did cover. And I knew Jesse Schule lost a lot of money to me on that bet.
Whiteout team. So Penn State announced the whiteout already, and since they're 1-3 against Ohio State since 2012 in whiteout games, they decided not to make Ohio State the whiteout game this year.
Wow. I remember the year that they blocked that punt to beat them. That was an amazing fourth quarter. But who is the whiteout against?
I believe it's against Illinois.
Okay.
I read something 2 days ago, so don't quote me on that, but I do know that it wasn't Ohio State because I tweeted something about it with the 1-3 record. The powers to be are probably making the right call to not make it that.
Minnesota.
It's Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota's the other one?
Minnesota's the whiteout, October 22nd.
So maybe Illinois is the stripe out where they go blue, white across the stadium.
Nothing like Big Ten football.
It was something like being in Happy Valley, to tell you the truth. I think Rob's been there. It's 100.
No, I never have.
I mean, it's the biggest amount of tailgating you will ever see anywhere on the planet. It's got to be, Rob, am I lying if I say 500 acres? And there's got to be at least 1,500 RVs. I mean, it's just amazing.
Now, I went to one game 15 years ago at Penn State. What I loved the most was at that point, you could go out at any point in the game, go to your trailer, grab a couple drinks, and then walk back in. Those in-and-out privileges might be gone, but those are the things I remember from it, going out to be able to drink during the game and having a full set of booze in a friend's trailer that we had.
Yeah, they don't have any beer vendors there. In fact, there's no room for them to walk around. It's barely enough room for the steps, but it's 112,000 and it's packed in and it gets loud. Really loud. Just ask Jim Harbaugh how loud it gets. Anyway, what was the next topic? Let's talk about the NBA Finals, and then we'll talk about the Phillies and Joe Girardi and that mess of a thing. I can barely hold myself back from talking about the Phillies, but we'll do the NBA Finals first. Needless to say, on the NBA Triple Double show, and I've been doing this a lot. I've been doing this as a strategy, and it's something I noticed from the analytics that when you have a home favorite that's trailing at the half and it's a meaningful game, bet them, and the percentage is close to 70%. They cover that in-game live bet. So on the show, and also to my premium accounts, even though I lost with the under last night, I did say that for another 1% max bet, no more than that, if the Celtics are in the lead at halftime, bet the Warriors. And I was able to get a line of -1 for the Warriors. And I felt like a genius going into the fourth quarter with a 14-point lead. I felt pretty damn smart. And as soon as you do that in sports betting, even if you don't have anybody to brag to, the betting gods humble you. And I was humbled. And I could not believe what I was watching. And it was hats off to the Celtics for hanging in there and continuing to fight. And I think the Warriors took the foot off the gas pedal and they couldn't re-engage the transmission. And we saw what happened. But let's give Rob Veno a shot here to lead us off here, since he is, and while he's the former, he's the reigning NBA best at Wagertalk, right? You won it 2 years in a row. You were number one at Wagertalk. So
yeah, somebody else is gonna wear that crown this year, John. But over the course of the last 3 years since I've been here at Wagertalk, it's still I still have the most profitable number at Wagertalk for 3 years. But somebody else is going to be number one this year. I'm not sure who. Andy Lang, maybe somebody that's had a tremendous year. But is it Ralph?
Wow.
Yep.
I'll be darned. Well, if you're going to turn the crown over to somebody, that's who you turn it over to. I was on the other side last night. I mean, I had over in that game, so I was happy. I don't know how many times you're going to get 43s made in a game, 21 by one side, 19 by the other. But certainly, the only thing that scared me last night, John, was if Golden State, they had the potential to come out and shoot a little bit rusty. And that's the only thing that stopped me really from backing up the truck and playing over in that game. I thought the number was too low at the outset. I got 211.5, which turned out to be a good number because it did go up to 214 by game time. But I think a lot of the reasons that I put into the handicap came true. Golden State's not going to be very successful against Boston if they come down half court and let Boston set up their half court defense every trip. So throughout the series, Golden State's going to have to push the tempo. And for the Boston side, I think they're capable of playing both ways. They're capable of playing in the half court because they have the size advantage at the rim, and they're capable of running in transition, which they got out and did a little bit of last night. But I don't know that, generally speaking, role players on the road don't do what Boston's did last night. I mean, Derek White, as much as I think he was a great free agent signing or a trade deadline acquisition, I don't think I expected Derek White to be 5 of 7 from 3 and have 21 points. You don't know if that stuff will repeat itself again, but I'll say this, all the swings that we saw in that single game last night, back and forth, Golden State, Boston, I think you're going to see that throughout the series. I did a zillion shows leading up to game one last night, and in every single one, I would just preface any analysis by saying, for every point a Golden State backer could make that would be positive, a Boston backer could come with a counterpoint to that same issue and be positive for them. And I don't know that there were, or if there are, any real advantages overall held by either team. It's going to be on a game-to-game basis, what they do well. And we'll see how game two goes. We see the total already jacked up to 215.5, 216, which is probably correct. And we'll see if Steve Kerr can make the correct adjustments against Boston. To your point, John, that fourth quarter last night, I somewhat fault Steve Kerr for, he pulled, and I know he's trying to get Steph some rest, right? You have to get him some rest at some point. But the second quarter, Golden State went dry when Steph Curry was on the bench. And the fourth quarter, they went dry when he was on the bench. And when he tried to come back and hit the ignition again, it just didn't start up for him. So that's something he's going to have to think about. Steph Curry, when he's in that kind of groove that he was in last night, hitting threes, you might just have to stick with him 40 minutes. Each game, it could be somebody different. It could be Klay Thompson, could be Andrew Wiggins, could be Jordan Poole, who was miserable last night. But we're going to see a pretty good series. In my estimation, it probably goes the distance. Selfishly speaking, I'm rooting for the Celtics because I got a plus 450 before the Miami series on Celtics to win the finals. So, and luckily enough, John, I'm glad it worked out the way it did last night because I was able this morning to come back and get Golden State to win the series at plus 140. So at least you got pluses on both sides now. And you can sit back and relax a little bit and play accordingly game by game.
Yeah, going into last night, the home team in game one was 17-2 straight up, 16-3 against the spread. 75% of the tickets bet of the 10 that I look at were on the Warriors, and it scared me to death. Although I did like the Warriors. My models liked the Warriors at 3.5, but they liked the under better. That didn't win. But now we have a small sample size for a home team losing game one. It's actually 1-0-1 against the spread, and that means nothing. Absolutely nothing.
But Ralph, the 62-0 went up to 63-0 last night, right? Just pick the winner.
That's right. Yeah. Yep, just like in the NFL playoffs for the most part.
Yeah, because the couple Golden State won and didn't cover as a 12.5-point favorite, and then once as a 7.5-point favorite, someone didn't win and cover. So
Miami,
as long as the line is 6 or under, yeah, the team that wins the game is now 62-0-1 ATS.
Crazy. That's unbelievable. That really is unbelievable.
It shows
LeBron.
if you like the dog, go ahead and sprinkle some on the money line. If you're playing a dog in the finals, go ahead and I'm not saying to make your entire bet the money line play, but split it up and take advantage of that, because we see these runs and we see the fourth quarters. And I'm just going to make one comment with what you said. I think it's Kerr's fault as well. I don't care who you want to give rest. This is championship game number 1, and he didn't play anyone over 38 minutes. Hey, you can rest in 14 days from now. And I'm sure those players aren't raising their hand wanting to come out. So to see the box score and see that no one played over 38 minutes for the Warriors, I think that was a big mistake.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We do know one thing, though. With double revenge, the Warriors lost at home to these Boston Celtics, I believe, on March 15th. They were 2-point favorites. They weren't at full strength, and it really doesn't matter, because the trend is that Coach Kerr is 18-1 straight up and against the spread, revenging double back-to-back losses to the same opponent. Whether it's regular season, playoffs combined, doesn't matter. It's 18-1. But, Boston's 11-2 right now in the second half of the season, going up against strong three-point shooting teams that are nailing 36% or better. So those are conflicting in my mind right now, and I don't know really how to differentiate those two. Maybe Jesse Schule can shed some light on it, and then we'll move over to Jeff for his views on Game 2 and the series and whatever other thoughts he has on it. But Jesse, I can't wait to play Texas Hold'em against you, because I guarantee you I will make you smile more than you ever did in your life, because I will make faces at you and you'll never know what I have.
All right. Well, I'm still pretty optimistic about the Warriors' chances here in the finals, but perhaps that's me being a little bit pot committed. I've got a bunch of series props. I got a prop on Curry to win MVP finally. So, I mean, I'm committed. But like Rob Veno said, you're looking at Derek White and Al Horford, career-high three-point shooting. I mean, can the Celtics count on getting that again in Game 2 and as the series moves along? I'm looking at Game 1, and I thought that Golden State came out firing on all cylinders, but it was a little bit ominous how well they played, how well they shot the ball early on, and how they just couldn't get any separation. And it, of course, did come back to haunt them. But one of the angles I was looking at earlier today that I was hoping to find some value on was, rather than taking the Warriors plus 140, as Rob mentioned, for the series, that perhaps the price would be significantly higher just taking Curry to win MVP, because I strongly feel that there's no way the Warriors come back and win this series without Curry being their best player. I mean, it's not going to be Iguodala this time around. KD's not there anymore. Klay Thompson's going to have to be good, but if Curry isn't better, the Warriors aren't going to win it. But it turns out it's not that big of a difference. The price I'm seeing is plus 165 for Curry to win the MVP. But I think that's not a bad play as well at this point.
Yeah, and to your point, he was minus 110 before the tip-off, and now he's, as you say, plus 165. And Tatum is now the favorite despite shooting 3 for 17, but he is now the leader for most assists in the first game of an NBA Finals of a player's career with 13. That doesn't really sound like MVP material to me, but I can tell you one thing that Ronald Cabang and I kind of hashed out on the fly on the Triple Double show yesterday was Marcus Smart was 40-1. I didn't bet him. Probably should have, possibly. We'll have to see. But he's now 16-1. And our theory was real simple, that if the Celtics were going to win, they were going to play the better defense of the two. And this is a matchup of two teams that are the number one, number two in terms of defensive efficiency that we've seen in the finals since 1995-96. which was when the Bulls beat the Seattle Supersonics. And Steve Kerr was one of the players on the Bulls team back then. So I thought that was kind of a neat little twist in this story. But let's see what Jeff Michaels has to say here. And, I'll throw this at you. The movement of Al Horford down to 16-1, tied with Marcus Smart. When I don't see Al Horford at 35 years of age continuing to do this, but who says he can't? You have any thoughts on that? And then just share with us anything else you want to mention about the rest of the series in Game 2.
Yeah, I didn't know if Al Horford could do it at all, let alone keep it up. But if he can keep it up at the rate that he's playing, he's been doing some impressive things, especially at his age, like you said. But I liked Marcus Smart coming into the defense aspect. We talked the other day about an NBA prop, and I thought Marcus Smart was going over that 1.5 steal marker, and he did. He ended up pulling out 2. And I really think that he is kind of that heart to that defense. And, going into Game 1, I didn't put it out, but I really thought that the experience at Golden State was going to do something over these Celtics, but that didn't happen. I said it earlier today. I was surprised to see that to end both of the halves, when you look at Golden State, so second quarter and fourth quarter, going into halftime and going into the end of the game, they scored 38 combined points in the second and the fourth quarter, and Boston put up 40 in the fourth quarter alone. So they outscored their second and their fourth quarter in 12 minutes. And really, when they needed to close things out, Golden State just, couldn't get it started again, like Rob said. And, surprise, last 3 years now, Boston's 4-0 playing in Golden State. And the second half of their year, they've closed out both of the last 2 years on impressive runs against the spread. They're 25-10 against teams over 500 in the second half of the year. And they're 25-12 in the last 3 seasons against teams allowing 108 points or less in the second half of the year. So, this team really seems to wake up in the second half of the year, and they've done it again in this postseason.
I got a question for someone on the panel if they have an answer to this, and I don't.
I don't either.
Marcus Smart. So we know that. So now, do the voters say, I maybe don't vote him MVP? Or do they say, hey, he won defensive MVP. I'm going to have him in the mix to be the conference finals MVP. And by the way, at FanDuel, Marcus Smart is actually 18-1 and Horford is 14-1. So there's a split between the two with Marcus Smart having the longer odds.
Wow. That is a good question. Welcome to the show, Tony Finn.
The gang's all here. Everything's the earth is on its axis, and only one detail has been ignored, and that's my 714 and my bottle of mezcal in my dressing room. It was not there.
Well, did you take it up with your parole officer and find out who took it?
I handcuffed him. He's busy right now.
Well, welcome to the show. I think we already forgot what Ralph's question was, but the question
I'm
with Marcus Smart and Al Horford, and if the voters would be hesitant to give him both awards since he's already Defensive Player of the Year.
I would say yes. I would say that this is like anything, as you were just discussing Boston and how well they when they decided they were going to play defense, they played defense. In the first half, they didn't have not one of the first 5 had a foul in the first quarter. They played soft. They didn't exhaust themselves. They weren't going to be fatigued at the end of this game. And when they decided to play some defense, they fell behind by 12 to start the fourth. And at that point in time, they did what they do really well. And that's basically, any team that switches like they switch, they're going to be able to contest 3-line jumpers. They're just going to be able to do those kind of things that other teams, especially teams that handball off like Golden State does. They're actually pretty darn good at handing the ball off and off ball screens. They shoot. Their percentages are pretty good, but that plays right into Boston. Really plays right into their hands, strength wise, defensively. So we'll see. It's a human factor, like Ralph said. I think they would have a tendency not to give both awards to the player unless it was over the top and he or she was. They would catch more grief for not voting or giving the award than they did. And that's why no matter how good Boston is, we have to deal with officials. So, game 2, Golden State, they're going to get every call, every break, and Boston's going to have to be the best they can be to steal both games.
And Scott Foster will make his appearance eventually.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Rob's in control of all that. Rob just makes a phone call.
We'll be on top of that. I mean, I flew into the face of that referee trend last night because Mark Davis had been 10-2 to the under as lead official in the playoffs. And I mean, if you took into account the 213.5, that was the number last night, 214, those games were all under 214. So Mark Davis, the middle official, John Goebel, was 6-2 to the under. The third official, James Williams, I think was 4-2 to the under. So there was quite a trend toward under with that refereeing crew, which hadn't worked together whatsoever in the playoffs. But last night it went way over. Ralph, I don't think it makes a difference, to answer your question really quick here. I was of the opinion, could be right, could be wrong, that if Golden State wins this thing, unless Steph Curry has a complete meltdown in this series, the sentiment is going to be so strong to give him the award that it's his. So if you think Golden State's going to win the series and you're betting an MVP selection from Golden State, forget the rest, just bet Steph Curry. But if Boston is to win it, I could see somebody other than Jason Tatum winning it. The 3 for 17 didn't get him off to a great start, but he's got plenty of time left to get going. But Jaylen Brown at times has been the equivalent of Jason Tatum, especially I think I saw a number fourth quarter or clutch shooting or something. Jaylen Brown and Al Horford were well over 70%. They were two of the best in the business at crunch time in the fourth quarter. But Marcus Smart fits right in there. Al Horford, he had a 30-point game a series ago, I think, right? He had 30 against Milwaukee. So the 26 last night was not a mirage. I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but it has happened twice now inside the playoffs. Maybe that's an answer, but I do think Brown or Marcus Smart could win. I don't think they would hold Defensive Player of the Year against Smart if he contributed offensively. I don't think he can win it upon defensive play only. But last night he had a pretty good start.
Horford's disqualified from winning that award.
Because
he can only win the ARP most valuable player award.
Okay, I see, Tom.
Well, the problem with Horford is this. He had 32 minutes. Tatum had 41 minutes. Jaylen Brown had 38 minutes. No one else played over 32 minutes. So if they're going to divide that time up, it's going to be very difficult for one of those players. I mean, Marcus Smart played under 30 minutes yesterday. So, if he's going to keep splitting the minutes like he does, it's going to be hard. I'm not a fan of Tatum. By no means would I bet Tatum as a chalk. But, Jaylen Brown played 38 minutes. He was plus minus. He was plus 22 yesterday. So, that's something in the end that the aggregate plus minus is something I know they'll be looking at.
So, Ralph, would you agree with this since you brought the question up really quickly? If Golden State wins this, let's say Golden State comes back to win game 2, they go in, they steal a game at TD Garden 2. They make it to game 7 back home and they win the series. It's, in my opinion, what Wiggins has done, not only in the conference finals, but he had 20 yesterday too. And without Wiggins, I'd venture to step out on a limb and say that Golden State loses by 20. He was, other than Curry, he basically was the offense, and he's kind of grown up, guys. I keep saying the star is born. If Boston wins this, then Tatum is kind of our new KD. He's much like KD, plays a lot like KD, has the same kind of skill set range, mid-range, long range, can rebound, can assist. But I like Wiggins or Curry. That was your question. That would be the only two guys. Obviously there's 6. It could be 6 games left, so a lot of things can happen. But Wiggins has grown up, really taken some accountability he's never taken before. If you guys know him, he's kind of been a tag along. Give me my check, give me my $30 million, and I'll show up with my nice sneakers and my messy beard and hair, and we'll play for basketball. But
you know what I don't like about Tatum, Tony Finn?
What's that?
Is you never saw Kobe or Michael Jordan or any of these defensive player of the year types that are on the all defensive team.
Yes.
Miss a shot, throw their arms up in the air, and start talking to the referee about the call that they missed.
Well, then you weren't paying attention.
5-on-4
because nobody, Mr.
How is that defensively?
Defensively?
Have you ever watched LeBron James play?
Yeah. Oh my God.
There's another one, and he's on the all-defensive team.
Michael Jordan was a whiny bitch. You weren't paying attention.
He did it during the timeouts. You never saw him argue with the ref and putting his team at a deficit.
Yeah, that's just part of the. Listen, that's part of the game I hate. It's not just Tatum; it's everybody.
Allen Iverson.
They miss a play. They start trying to talk to the ref. They bitch. They whine. They complain. And the next thing you know, it's 5-on-4.
I'll tell you one thing. I credit the Boston Celtics head coach for getting his team together and saying enough is enough. Stop your bitching, stop your crying, and play the game. And since that point, you don't see the arm waving like you did in the Miami Heat Celtics game there in the first 2 games, 3 games. That was, I was borderline sick.
Well, nobody whines. Nobody is a better whiner and a better, a bigger sissy bitch. Than
We're allowed to say sissy bitch on this show?
Then who?
We can't. Well,
shit.
If we can't, well, I'm in big trouble because I do much worse than that.
But who's the player?
Luka.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, he acted like a 23-year-old. I mean, that's
that's true. Yeah.
I mean,
but he's a diva through and through. Wow.
I wanted to know what kind of face cream he uses. It's damn near perfect.
Well,
it's diva. It would help me on the show.
Diva rhymes with what? What's that? Neva. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah, that's skincare. Yeah. Well, he can afford a lot better than that.
Jesse. Let me put some sense back into this show before we get off on face cream and whatnot. That the plus 140 that I said I took with Golden State, and you said you were looking for better on an MVP. I actually probably made the wrong bet if I liked Golden State to win the series. If you like Golden State to win the series and you're strong on Golden State to win the series, then you don't take the 140. You play them to win this thing. 4 games to 2 is plus 750. 4 games to 3, which would be on their home floor, is plus 340.
Yeah.
And if you think they're going to win 4 consecutive and win this thing 4-1, you get plus 1,400. All 3 of those are better than the plus 140 I have, but I'm not strong on Golden State winning the series. Like, I've battled with our colleague Ski Profit for the last 8 days. He's extremely high on Golden State.
He's not as quiet as high this morning.
I did a show with him at 1 o'clock. No, I did a show with him at 1 o'clock. He's as loud as he was prior to yesterday. Don't worry about it. But if you're that strong on Golden State winning, then you certainly don't play it the way I played it. You play Golden State to win either 4-2, 4-3, 4-1. You get tremendous numbers right now.
I agree with what you're saying. And I did watch your show with Ronald Cabang as well, just prior to the game 1. And I thought you made some great points. And it kind of worried me seeing how I had all these prop bets on Golden State. But I also agree with what you said about the MVP, that the sentiment's going to be so strong for Curry to win it because he hasn't gotten it before, that I really don't see any possibility that they would, it would have to be such a disparity. Thompson or Wiggins, as Tony pointed out, would have to be so much better than Curry that if they were better than Curry by that degree, the Warriors just aren't going to win. without Curry being at least close to the best player.
Right.
And I'm going to disagree with Tony because I think Wiggins. I'm not going to disagree that Wiggins might deserve it. I think that Tony was bang on there, but I think his name still has a connotation of a flop, a bust. Like Tony said, he's coming out of that now. He's coming out of that shell, but that lingers for a while. You don't just go from bust to playoff MVP, in my opinion. I don't think voters do that for you. I think it takes years before you take that off.
You're getting Wiggins at 60-1, so you could bet 0.25 of a unit. You're not investing anything to cover your asset with Wiggins. It'd almost be silly for Tony to not bet Wiggins for a quarter unit and cover your bet just in case. So what's the downside of a quarter unit if he has any inkling at all that you don't want to leave that off the board? We're not saying you've got to bet 5 units on each player. You bet 5 units on Curry and you bet 1 unit, you're still going to get back 60 units if Wiggins wins. Half a unit's going to get you back 30. So, break it down in perspective with where the odds are. And, we all know Tony's a drunk, but, it's a good point that
I'm a happy.
Those odds, don't leave it off the board. Just downsize your bet significantly to keep it in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
We use
the 21 horse won the Kentucky Derby too, so make sure you got that thing covered too.
Yeah.
I've been using that 80-1, and I'll be honest with you, my models were leaning on the PGA Tour because we talk about that on Wednesdays, or we used to.
Easy, John.
And Cameron, I'm not gonna digress here for very long, but Cameron Young was 80-1. And the course sets up pretty well at the Memorial for his style of play. And wouldn't you know, he was tied for the lead yesterday at 80-1. But the one bet I will not do is the Jets are 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. And there's more of a chance of Tony Finn winning a beauty contest in Las Vegas over Joe D'Amico than there is.
That's a slam dunk.
Well, I guess. But anyway, I think it's going to be 6 games. One way or the other.
Well, if it's 6 games, it's at TD Garden. I played 6 games. Okay, I played a 4-2 series, which I got that at 480 plus 480. I looked at it after this game, and it's down to a 250 or a 260 something in that area. I thought, didn't Ralph? All you guys, did you not think that the series, the swing on that from Boston being plus 145 to a minus 180, I thought that was a little bit. I thought maybe they went 20 cents too far on that, at least.
Drastic.
It is. Yeah. I thought it was. Maybe I'm.
Yep, I agree.
The finals are different because you have legitimate public money. The first round of the playoffs, most people aren't going to bet the chalk in those in those first rounds, but now in the finals, you got enough people that just get enamored with the fourth quarter of the Celtics that, they're drinking green beer in June instead of in March. So,
recency bias.
Yeah. I lined up to. I played Boston. I knew I had to play them. We talked about it on the NBA show. I played them before game 1 because I was one of those that believed. They could win that game. If I didn't think they were going to win that game, I certainly wouldn't have played them at plus 145. I'd have waited until they lost game 1, and then they would have been plus 180, plus 190, maybe even 200. But I thought maybe I'd come back and play them again at game 2. Not only would I play them, rather than play them on the side in game 2, I thought I'm just going to jump in on and build on my series price on them. But I couldn't pull the trigger at minus 180. I mean, I just couldn't do it. So, I'm one of those. I'm a Teddy Covers kind of guy. Teddy's one of those guys. Listen, if you like Golden State, in game 2, then you certainly should be playing Golden State to win the series. In my opinion, and Teddy would say you're better off getting that plus. So what are they right now? Plus 140, 145. What are they?
Yeah, and Rob said,
at least
look at playing Golden State 6 or 7 games because the odds are they're not going to sweep. Boston's going to win 1 at home. So take Golden State, do half a unit on Golden State and
Go away.
half a unit on Golden State and 7, and you'll even top your money.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
If you like them strong, that's the way to go.
Yeah. I like them.
Well, I guess we covered the NBA. I want to just talk Major League Baseball briefly here, and then you don't have to have a free bet for the show, but that's usually how we end it. And then Rob Veno is always the anchor, and that's the superstition that I have because I usually have a good night when he's the anchor on this show. But Major League Baseball, I have a trivia question. What is it's two-folded. Tony Finn, don't get sick yet.
Ty Cobb.
It has nothing to do with the Major League Baseball owners or their incompetence.
George Steinbrenner.
What does the Seattle Mariners, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Philadelphia Phillies have in common? There's a second question to this, so be careful.
What do they have in common?
Yeah.
They're all
Right now, what do they have in
they're all
common?
Major League Baseball teams.
Well, other than that,
They're all
and the fact that they have the same number of players, that doesn't count either.
What'd you say?
How long are you going to let us all look stupid here before you give us another clue?
Well,
I'm
no,
quite
it's
certain
just I'm fed up with the Philadelphia regime, whatever you want to call it. I'm kind of fed up with a lot of regimes in Major League.
I'm looking right here. They all have 22 wins. That's in common.
That is it. Rob Veno gets the prize of $2
Wow,
to
Rob
the next
Veno.
IPA. So they have
Wow.
20. Now, what do they have that's not in common? Is the
Is
fact that
trivia question that means something over history, not.
but
So you completely f that up.
give you a chance to finish it now. I'm going to show you why the Phillies management is the most incompetent money managers there is. The payroll for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who, if you factor out the simple fact that they're 0-6 against Milwaukee and they're 500 against everybody else, and they just swept the Dodgers in LA.
They did.
Their payroll is $33 million.
They're still paying Clint Hurdle. It's more than $33 million.
Okay, well, their payroll is $33 million, including him. The Seattle Mariners, $79 million.
Yeah.
So if you extrapolate Pittsburgh's season out for the whole year, their cost per win, which is a Moneyball thing, is $78,000, which is better than Oakland did in 2002 by far.
Yeah. We got a problem with that. Houston, we have a problem, or Pittsburgh, we have a problem.
Okay, so the payroll for the Phillies, fourth in Major League Baseball, $230 million and 22 wins. What is wrong with that picture? And
Maybe
is
they should
Girardi's the scapegoat? Are you kidding me? Who can manage this team better than Girardi? That's
Who?
my question for everybody.
Well, I'm quite certain that you believe that Doc Rivers can, but I
think
don't.
Ben
I would disagree
Simmons
with
should be
you.
the manager of the Phillies.
Who?
Ben Simmons.
Ben Stevens? Ben Simmons?
Yeah, well,
I agree. I agree 100%.
at this point, why not? He's pretty cheap, I hear.
Hey, John, Gabe Kapler is a winning manager since he
Oh,
got
there you
out of
go.
Philadelphia.
There you go.
And he couldn't win there, right? I mean, listen, it's got to fall. I mean, just from being outside 30 minutes outside Philadelphia, right? We're in the area. I mean, it's got to fall on Dombrowski, right? I mean, as much good stuff as he's done throughout his career as a GM, he's the architect of this mess. People that can't pick up a ground ball, people that can't lay down a bunt or they break their finger, Gene Segura.
Who the hell can
This
bunt
team-
in
this
baseball
team-
anymore?
This team can hit.
Yeah.
They can hit. You can't have everything.
Listen, Earl Weaver played for 3-run home runs in 1972, but that's what Girardi sits around and plays for now, and it ain't working with this team.
It's
They-
because
they don't
Girardi doesn't
defend.
smoke.
They don't defend. They don't run the bases. They don't do anything really well, guys, except stack a bunch of extra base hitters inside that lineup.
Yeah.
Pitching staff still isn't there. Bullpen still isn't there after 5 years. How long is it going to take them to correct that? So it's a mess. The architect behind it probably is to blame, John, more than anybody else, I would think. He's the guy who hauls in the talent and doles out the contracts.
So you get rid of a Hall of potential. He probably will be in the Hall of Fame as a player, right? Catcher for the Yankees. How many rings does he have?
Oh, Girardi?
Yeah.
I would say
And Joe hasn't done a great job, John,
No.
but I'm with you. I
I'll
don't know
give you
who can
that.
do it better. I mean, he hasn't done a terrific job, but
Maybe
who
you're
is
doing
gonna
him a
be
favor,
better?
though.
What was that, Jesse?
Maybe you're doing him a favor. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the manager of the Phillies or the Sixers or really any team in Philly myself.
It's a no-win situation. You know when you accept the position, you're going to be fired. At some point, they're going to hate you, and you're going to get fired.
Well, that's every Major League Baseball manager's hired or fired. I mean, I don't who's got the longest tenure right now in Major League Baseball. I can't even think of who it would be. But
Ralph, is there an angle to this situation? Fired manager the day of the game. Is there an angle for that?
Well, usually the team has that stress of the locker room relief that they don't know which day he's going to get the axe. Now the axe has happened, so what happens is the team, just all of a sudden magically starts winning. So I would think that they do pretty well against the Angels this weekend. But the Angels are playing pretty damn good baseball in their own right, and they've been kind of struggling in that trough area on my charts. And they're
get into that database.
A little bit better, John. Being more relaxed now. They know, the expectation has happened. Buy the rumor, sell the fact.
Yeah,
that's my take on it. But it's a shame because one of the big loudmouths in Philadelphia, that's a sportscaster that Rob Veno knows who I'm talking about, said that Terry Francona was the worst manager in Major League Baseball, and he's the guy who ended the curse in Boston.
Yeah.
Well,
he would imagine nothing was the prediction. Terry Francona is a fraud. He's going to end up, unemployed sooner rather than later. And I think he's still managing the Guardians, right?
He is. Yeah.
Couple injury runs there, but
it sounds like I'm talking about.
Yeah, speak, Jeff.
A couple injury runs there that he hasn't been with the team, but he's still leading the team from afar. Hey, and we got no complaints about him here. I mean, you hear things about his past, but since he reversed that curse, and he's playing. You want to talk about playing with no money? But we don't need to bring the Guardians into a minimal salary kind of conversation. But they're playing with next to no money too, and he's kept them in some sort of consideration. Even
the Guardians. Listen, if Bieber wasn't, there's something wrong with Bieber. If Bieber was Bieber, and I think if they had one more starter, this is a team that there's no doubt in my mind they can contend in the AL Central.
Yeah.
Boy.
Bieber's still down about 4 miles an hour. So
yes, he is. Yeah. He's pitching, but his hard contact's under 40%, which is
he's still as good as anyone spotting the ball. Yeah. He just can't put that fastball by him. I mean, if he gets any spin back at all, he's going to be that Cy Young pitcher. So now he's a decent to good pitcher, maybe even almost a very good pitcher, but not to the elite level that you want your number one to be at.
Today's his day to bounce back. We talked about it earlier. I was on with Jesse earlier, actually, and I was talking Guardians. And the Baltimore's never scored a run in a game that Bieber started, and he's on the mound today. 2 shots. That's bullpen or Bieber in his 2 starts. Wow. So today's one to turn.
2 starts, 2 lifetime starts against Baltimore.
Yeah, he's only got 2, but 2.
I thought it was maybe 3.
Is it? He's got 2 shutouts against him. I was looking at him for a K prop today. He's got double-digit strikeouts against him both times. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but there's a lot looking back on what you looked at the first 2 weeks of the season, and they looked like a freaking football team out there with the scoreboard.
Rob,
so there's
the database, did not give me new coaches for baseball. So
Bob Melvin.
Oh, okay.
Bob Melvin's the longest tenured, though, to answer your question, Tony.
In baseball.
Yeah. Bob Melvin? Okay. Well, listen, the worst manager coaches in Chicago, and it's not for the Cubs. The worst manager, and how he talked himself into that job, I have no effing idea.
Off of a DUI.
Yeah. That's
the AL Central, because that's the one he can win, right?
Listen, I'm old. This guy's he is a walking dead. he didn't. You know, he doesn't even know the rules. I mean, he's been out of the game point. He didn't even know the extra innings rules. Never mind.
True or not, Tone, I'm not sure, but stuff I'm reading is that the dugout is not even listening to that guy anymore. The players
I'm telling
have had
you,
they
listen.
And, his days are numbered. I mean, he's gone through a lot of injury. Let's face it, they got some key pieces missing from that lineup for sure.
Yeah.
But why they hired him? To your point, why they hired him in the first place?
He talked himself. He basically said, "I can manage this team." It was with a team, so he just basically said, "I can manage this team with my, stand on my head, one hand tied behind my back, one eye closed." And they said, "Why not?"
I like when he rushes the field and acts like he's going to hurt somebody.
Well, that's subjective. Rushes because he's still.
You're right. He
ought to be on the Carol Burnett show. He ought to be on the Carol Burnett show, and be the
only person he's going to rush out there and hurt is himself.
Absolutely.
Is that one of those black and white shows, Tony? The Carol Burnett show? Because I've never heard of it.
It's you have to. You should remember it. I mean, they had black and white TVs when you were growing up.
Yeah.
right after Hogan Heroes, it's on.
Right. Green Acres, all it.
Yeah.
They line them all up on Me TV. That's beautiful. Feel like I'm 6 again.
Space again.
Does it tell you something? Does it tell you something that I know? Green Acres.
That does tell
Fantastic.
me. It means that you have a.
That your dad brought you up around. That's what it tells me.
Yeah, I was gonna say because somebody knows something about some Green Acres.
He did a good job raising you, Jeff.
I got the theme song ringing in the back of my head now.
Mm-hmm.
He's still he's one of those guys that still thinks Sophia Loren's hot. Is that Sophia Loren? No. Is Zsa Gabor? Who plays on the
Ava Gabor?
Ava Gabor. Ava. I'm sorry, my bad. Yeah. No. Ava.
Eddie Albert.
Huh? Who?
Eddie Albert.
Yeah.
I remember Thurston Howell's the third's wife.
She's not hot either.
She had a lot of baggage.
Yeah. She's not hot.
Here we go.
She's hot dressed.
Yeah.
And we're off the rails. We're so far off the rails.
Face cream, the Carol Burnett show, and Sophia Loren, Ava Gabor.
God.
I'm a little confused, but I thought that was a Gilligan's Island reference.
That was a Gilligan's Island
I don't
reference.
know why you went from Green Acres to Gilligan's Island, but it's John.
Did you catch that, Jeff?
Agreed with him, yeah.
I not know.
Okay, now this is a serious question.
Okay.
Yes.
Who was hotter, Ginger or Mary Ann?
Mary Ann.
That's
I'm
an
Mary
age-old
Ann
question.
myself. I'll go Mary Ann.
Ginger was a ginger that no, Mary Ann.
Mary Ann with her little short shorts.
Well, take those off. She's probably even a little. She's better. I like Mary Ann.
I feel like she's won that competition for the last 50 years. It's always Mary Ann.
Although I think she passed recently. I believe she did.
She got a few years on you, Tone. So
I could be
Put a
wrong,
bump
but
on the show. Thanks. Appreciate it, Finn.
There was no question it was Ginger in my mind.
no, there you go. You got to vote for Ginger.
No question.
Well, then,
do you think there is a man on the face of the earth that if you gave him that trivia question, they'd say neither, and Mrs. Howe the third was their answer?
Well, I
Well,
was
then he
thinking
they
Tony might say the professor. You know, he was a good-looking guy. So
Is it Professor?
or one of the natives, the guy with the bone through his nose, kind of sexy.
Yeah, now we have gone off the rails.
Oh,
All right, I'm going to start us with the final round here. We'll go around real quick. I'm going to give out one of my free picks, and this is a 4%ers. Actually, I have a trio of 4%ers going tonight, and I know it's a matchup that you guys are going to like quite a bit, and that's the San Diego Padres are taking on the Milwaukee Brewers, and it's a tremendous matchup between Corbin Burns and Joe Musgrove. Two of the best in the National League right now in terms of ERA, WHIP, any way you want to look at it. I give the edge simply to Corbin Burns in this matchup. If you look at their offensive stats, no matter how you slice it, even the StatCast, they're almost mirror images of each other, but they are playing in Milwaukee. That's an edge. They're playing at home, and I think Burns is just a slight bit better than Musgrove. Bullpen, I give the edge to Milwaukee quite a bit, actually, because last night Milwaukee came back with 5 runs in the ninth to win. I guess it was 4 runs in the ninth to win 5-4. And the closer for San Diego obviously is not available. He didn't get one batter out in that ninth, and he was pretty horrendous. So I think Milwaukee is valued. You would think it's a little bit high, -1, whatever it is, 150, 155. But I think they get it done. Corbin Burns, he's only 3-2. He could easily be 5-2. He could easily be 7-0 if he played for a team like the Dodgers, as long as the Dodgers aren't playing Pittsburgh. 10 starts, 1.95 ERA, 0.82 WHIP, 11 walks, just 11 walks, 78 strikeouts, third in the league. He has the third best Ks per 9 in the league. And I think he's just going to dominate what I think is a pretty weak hitting San Diego Padres team. So it's a 4%er on the Milwaukee Brewers, boxed with Burns. Who wants to go next? We just go right around the horn here with Ralph next, and then Jeff, and then Tony, Jesse, and then Rob. How's that?
We will. I'll give out one of my plays for today as well, and it's in the WNBA. A lot of value in the WNBA, guys. It's been good for me over the last couple of years, and I'm using Chicago. I actually used them on the money line, -135 against Atlanta. And you look at the Sky, they were last year's champions. They're only 2-1 their last 3 games, and they're 0-3 ATS. But what happened is they played very sloppy the last couple games, needed a big fourth quarter comeback. When you have a veteran team that talks about having to get out to a quick start, like the Chicago Sky are, I like playing them in that next game. And Atlanta has clearly overachieved. They got a rookie, clearly the rookie of the year in Howard out of Baylor. She's scoring over 20 points per game. And the problem is this, though. When they face top opponents, most of their wins have come over lower echelon teams. They're 6-4 on the year. They've only beaten one winning team. That's Dallas, who's now 5-4. But a key to my handicapping, be it baseball late in the pennant race, be it the NFL, be it college football divisions, when I have a better team looking up at their opponent in the standings, it's a powerful motivator for me. I like game 605. It is an actual play on Chicago.
Great stuff, Ralph.
Yeah.
Love it. Jeff, Ralph's son, you are up for your best bet for the show. If you want to get one out.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Houston, the Astros over Kansas City on this line. I think this line is unbelievable with how bad Kansas City. We've talked about the AL Central today, and they're at the bottom of the bottom at the moment. I mean, they've struggled against good bullpens, to say the least. They're 2-15 against bullpen ERAs that are 3.45 or better. And they're 4-17 against bullpens with a whip that's under 1.25, both of which Houston covers. They're 3-15 against teams that are outscoring opponents by a half a run or more. And Houston behind Urquidy struggled ERA-wise on the road recently. His ERA is 7.09, but the team's still 4-2 in his 6 road starts. They've won 4 out of 5 of his starts at night, and they've won 5 out of the last 6 overall. And they're coming off a couple big wins. They're 8-3. Houston's 8-3 in their last 11 against teams over 500, playing off back-to-back wins. And I think that there's no better team for Houston to continue this streak than playing against a team like Kansas City. And last time I checked, they were, I believe, like -130. That may have shifted since the last time I looked, but there's value to be made on that Houston line.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. I think Houston's going to score a lot of runs too. Let's move over to Mr. Finn.
You know what?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds on this one.
Oh, I can get it done in 1 minute. I can name that tune in 5 minutes, so relax. I'm gonna ask you to lay a little bit of wood tonight, and I'm gonna go with a late game out Chavez Ravine, and it's time. It's time. I think there's, like you talked about with San Diego. I think that they have played above their skill set, their profile. They, if you look at their expected wins or a record, they're better than they should be. Probably the Mets are definitely better than they should be. They have, if you look at their schedule, they've played a really soft schedule, and I think last night was a pretty good indicator of what you're going to get from the Mets against a team that can play defense and pitch. And that's despite their manager, another manager that we could probably talk a little bit about. But I certainly think Bassett is he's due for some negative regression, and I really like what Tyler Anderson has done. If you look at his game logs, he hasn't faced the a fearsome 1 through 9, but I really like this situation, laying $150. I think that's what it is. At least it was last night. I haven't looked at and put in my games yet. They're going in as soon as we're done here. But I believe that the Dodgers were about minus 150 or 160, and I think it's I think it's a fair price, more than a fair price. And Bassett probably pitches to his 4.31 FIP, and at some point in time his 85% strand rate is the strand supervisor is going to come, or the strand collector is going to come calling and say, listen, it's time for you to pay up because we've given you too many breaks. So give me the Dodgers minus the money, minus the wood.
It's actually it's 150 is the high. There's actually some 147s, 148.
Perfect. Yeah. Bassett's getting a little bit of love. Mets are getting a lot of love, and Bassett has been pretty good. So I think that ends.
I'm with you on that one too. It's been unanimous so far.
Okay, let's parlay them all.
Yeah. Well, let's see if Jesse Schule has maybe a juicy dog for us to add to this massive parlay.
I'm not your dog guy, but I do like the Guardians, and that's a play that Jeff gave out on the morning show this morning. But I'm not going to go with the baseball here. I'm going to give out a hockey play because hey, nobody else is going to.
No.
I'm looking at the total in tonight's Eastern Conference Final Game 2, and I will point out that last night we saw the Oilers and the Avs. The total was 7.5 after they scored 14 goals in Game 1. And a little bit of a shocker. They came out, I believe it was a scoreless first. The Avs ended up winning that game 4-0. Now, similar story, high-scoring Game 1 for the Rangers and the Lightning. But what's different about this series is you got two of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. Igor Shesterkin is the favorite to win the Vezina this year, best goalie in the regular season. Andrei Vasilevsky is a Conn Smythe winner, a Vezina winner, a notorious playoff performer coming off a bad performance. Expect him to bounce back, and expect both these teams to tighten up here in Game 2. The total's 5.5. I think 3 goals is enough to win this game.
And that Tampa Bay Lightning's goalie hasn't lost back-to-back games all season.
Never. Has not done it yet. You're right.
Do you take into account, we saw how sloppy Tampa Bay was with that long layoff after the sweep. So I completely agree now with Tampa Bay and their defense and the goaltending being in a normal rotation of not having the extended rest period gets them back in their normal set of play. It's different from the West Coast because the West Side's going to keep scoring with Colorado there, but completely agree. And I think you can throw those Game 1 results out because the emotion the Rangers had from the Game 7 win at Carolina versus a team that was rusty. We often ask, what's better, rest or rust? Clearly for Tampa Bay, it was a negative being rusty.
And we've seen Tampa showing the ability to come back and respond already in these playoffs. The previous 5 games were all under Vasilevsky allowing 1 goal, or I think 4 goals in 5 games. So yeah, I feel comfortable under 5.5 here.
Yeah, good stuff. And then we come to our 6th and final show pick of the afternoon here. Rob, And we always try to leave the best for last. What do you have for us, Rob?
Well, I want to show Ralph that I brought my pen to the party, so we're good there. I'll go to Sunday, guys. We talked a little bit about the NBA playoffs, but I'll go to game 2. And, play what, situationally is an obvious thing, I guess. But I'm going to play Golden State first quarter, -1.5. And again, obvious, simple reasons. Stuff like you can't go down 0-2 in your first 2 home games. The sense of urgency would be with Golden State. Golden State wants to redeem themselves for the way the fourth quarter happened the other night, probably chomping at the bit to get back out on the floor. The Celtics might be happy with a split in Golden State. All that stuff that we hear all the time in this particular situation. It's kind of elementary, but I think it does apply here. So I'll start with that. But I think what really sells me on this is Boston's developed a trend. The last 2 series that they've played against Milwaukee and Miami, they've won 8 games. Obviously, takes 4 to win those 2 series. So they've won 8. And 2 of those were game 7s. So we'll throw the game 7s out because there's no follow-up game. There's no game 8. But the other 6 wins that Boston has had against Milwaukee and Miami, the last 2 playoff series, they're 0-6. 0-6 in the following game first quarter. They won game 2 and then lost the first quarter of game 3 against Miami. Lost it by 21, won game 4, lost the first quarter of game 5, won game 5, lost the first quarter of game 6, so on and so forth. They did it 3 times against Milwaukee as well. Those 6 losses, those 6 first quarter losses are all between 2 and 21 points. So that pairs pretty well for Golden State, but we want to make sure that the other side is capable. And with Golden State, up until the other night, they had 4 playoff losses. The other night, Thursday night, last night was their 5th. But in their 4 playoff losses, first quarter of the very next game, Golden State's 3-1. They've won every one of those first quarters by 4 points or more. So we're only laying 1.5 here, guys. I think that it's pretty safe to figure that Golden State will come out from the opening tip seriously motivated. And the way Boston has played first quarters off a win, I don't think they get this one done. So I'm going to try Golden State -1.5. You'd ask Boston, can they replicate what just happened in the fourth quarter, in the first quarter here? I doubt it. Golden State -1.5, game 2, first quarter.
Love it, gentlemen. All 6 of you. This has been one of the most pleasurable shows I've ever had the chance to host. And it's unfortunate, but we're at the end of the show. But I want to, before I let you guys go, SportsMemo and Wagertalk combined forces, and they are offering viewers of this show the opportunity to get us for $7 a day.
No,
that's cheaper than an IPA that you're probably drinking right now on a Friday night.
No.
And if you can't give up one, then you probably should be training cats how to fly or something. If you're into sports and sports betting, this is a golden opportunity. It's $210 for any one of us at Wagertalk or SportsMemo, or even the ones that are not appearing on this show. They're all worthy professional sports bettors that are worthy to receive your money, and in exchange, you're going to learn just a mountain of information that you didn't know even existed. That much I can promise you. Rob, I wanted to say, too, you were an inspiration to me last year in the NBA, and I believe they tell me I'm number 1 at SportsMemo. It's been an epic run, as Teddy Covers would say. He uses that word epic, right? Last 50 NBA plays, 69%, and he lost last night. And it is what it is, but it's been, you sometimes pinch yourself when you're on these runs because they don't last forever. But fortunately for me, it was like a chart of Apple Computer. It surged and then it leveled off, consolidated. It didn't go down. I didn't lose like 7 or 8 in a row, and it started surging again. So I'm very grateful for that. No question about it. So hopefully I'll hang on to that number 1 spot. And that's about all I have to say. Anybody have any final thoughts before I send you guys home?
Code is June 30 for the discount. You go in, you click on a capper for the month.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
9, type in the code JUNE30, and it'll take that price down to just $7 a day.
Thanks for mentioning that, Ralph, because I clearly forgot that part of it. And that's pretty important part. All right, so thanks for a great hour and 15 minutes here, guys. It's always fun. The time just flies by. I told Jeff and Ralph earlier that our record show was 2 hours, I think 33 minutes, I think, and we'll try never to do that again.
Oh, let me guess.
We learned everything about Tony Finn's childhood, how he was raised. I mean, it was just one story after another.
Yeah.
The desert and what it really means in Las Vegas. It was, I mean, it was kind of thrilling at times. It was like watching, the Blacklist.
Yeah. 2 hours of it had nothing to do with sports betting, believe me.
Well, I mean, you there was connections if you really, tried to think about it, but you had to think pretty hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll let you guys go.
Training is difficult, going through the training, the rigors.
It is. We are, for those that are watching this, we are going to get a 2 or 3 day max schedule for Manny's Pub. Started, next week, or certainly in force right after the NBA finals are over, because we'll have baseball to talk about. There'll be less to talk about. So we'll do like Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we'll figure out that schedule for everybody. So on behalf of all these fine gentlemen, SportsMemo.com, Wagertalk.com, remember the 2 things I always tell you: bet with your head, never over it, especially on weekends, and may all the wins be yours. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next week.